Ladies and gentlemen, today we convene under a defining theme, India's global moment, a phrase that reflects not just an aspiration but a reality taking shape, where reform, resilience and innovation are converging to position Bharat as a force of transformation on the global stage.
And we will be inaugurating this day of dialogue and discovery with our very special guest. The first hour talk that features one of India's most dynamic policy visionaries, a civil servant whose leadership has propelled landmark national missions like Make in India, Startup India, and Ease of Doing Business. A believer in the power of innovation and enterprise, he has championed India's transition into a globally competitive and self-reliant economy.
Please join me in welcoming Mr. Amitabh Kant, G20 Sherpa and former CEO of Niti Aayog, a visionary reformer who continues to inspire a new era of public policy leadership. Please welcome Mr. Amitabh Kant as he shares his insights on Aatmanirbharta, Antidote to Turmoil.
So, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, let me first say what a delight it is to visit this campus. I've been to the CNN, BBC, and the Al Jazeera campuses, and this one is at least 1,000 times better than all of them. So, this is by far the finest campus of any news channel, and the newsroom is absolutely world class. I don't think there's a better newsroom than this anywhere in the world. So this demonstrates what the spirit of excellence, what great passion and commitment can do, and I'm truly delighted to be here, Arnab. So my compliments to you and your very dynamic, energetic, and vibrant team, which has built this institution with love and passion. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll take you back to 2014. At that point of time, I was Secretary, Department of Industrial Policy and Promotion. India was facing the twin balance sheet problem. There were huge debts on the balance sheet of corporates, and there were non-performing assets on the bank side. Indian economy was then termed as one of the fragile fives of the world. In the last decade, we've moved from fragile five to the top four. And in a year and a half, we'll be the top 3 economies of the world. During this period, I've been associated personally with the Ease of Doing initiative. And at that point of time, India was ranked 144th in the World Bank Ease of Doing Business. And the Prime Minister tasked me to eliminate a lot of rules, regulation, procedures. India, while the World Bank was doing the ranking, India jumped up in 2 years, 79 positions in the World Bank Ease of Doing Business. But more than that, it's the only country in the world which has eliminated about close to 1,800 laws. It's fully digitized its economy. But this is a work in progress. Every day we do keep doing innovative things, and as the Prime Minister yesterday announced, that the nuclear sector, which has been a monopoly of the public sector, will be opened up for the private sector. In the last 3 to 4 years, we've opened up the space sector, we've opened up the geospatial sector, we've opened up the drone sector, and now we are opening up the nuclear sector for private sector participation. The space sector, the geospatial sector, the drone sector have led to almost over 3,500 new startups emerging in these areas and accelerating the pace of growth of Indian economy. And with nuclear sector opening up, you will see the emergence of India as a champion of small modular reactors. So you will see a large number of young companies emerging in this area of nuclear growth. And to my mind, one of the greatest hallmark of the Indian economy in the last decade is that it's built the spirit of free enterprise. That it's not the government. The government will act as a catalyst, as a facilitator, but the private sector will be the driver of growth. And the Indian private sector and the Indian startup movement will really be the key torch bearer of this growth. And in the long run, if India is to grow on a sustained basis from a 4 trillion to a 30+ trillion dollar economy, the private sector of India and the young startups of India and our ability to create young entrepreneurs will be the key to India's growth story. And therefore, my belief that this challenge of 4 trillion to a 30+ trillion dollar economy, we should clearly comprehend this. It means that your GDP has to grow 9 times, your per capita income has to grow 8 times, your manufacturing has to grow 16 times. And since there's a young audience here, it's important to tell you that very few countries in the world have been able to do this. It was done by Japan post-World War II, it was done later by Korea, and in recent time, China has grown at scorching pace of growth. Only 3 countries in the world, all other countries of the world were caught in the middle income trap. 108 countries of the world are caught in the middle income trap. So the Prime Minister's bet on India becoming Viksit Bharat is a very ambitious, a very audacious task. And for India to be able to do this, you need free enterprise to grow and prosper. When these 3 countries were growing, it was a different world. It was a period of political stability across the world. New institutions like UN, Security Council, World Trade Organizations were there. They ensured stability in the growth of these countries in the world. What we are seeing is a different world. We are seeing geopolitical crisis, you're seeing conflict, you're seeing wars, you're seeing the breakdown of global supply chains. You're seeing a war in the heart of Europe for 4 years. You saw a war in the Middle East. You've seen over 180,000 people dying in Russia-Ukraine war. And you're seeing over 350,000 people dying in the Middle East. It's a different world. When Japan was growing, Korea was growing, China was growing, there was a post-World War II era. So first and foremost, we must understand that the period of stability across the world has come to an end. The period of stability has come to an end. There's a geopolitical conflict and tension on. The second is that when these 3 countries were growing, Japan, Korea, China were growing, the global supply chains were growing and expanding. It was possible to import, do value addition, and re-export. There was free trade. America was driving free trade, Europe was driving free trade, and therefore they said, we'll manufacture in China, we'll import, we'll put it together, we'll do value addition. Value will be made in the United States, but hard manufacturing will be done in China, but global value chain was their approach. That has broken down completely, and you're seeing protectionism and tariff at the heart of policies across the world. Trump is imposing tariffs, he's pushing for protectionism, Xi Jinping is responding with counter tariffs, and then, therefore, across the world, you're seeing a period of breakdown of global value chain with protectionism and tariff at the heart of it. But let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that in the midst of these two global crises, there is a third force. And we are all living in an era when the world is seeing the biggest rise in productivity and growth. And that is because of data, machine learning, artificial intelligence. We're seeing disruption which will enable us to solve problems which the world could never solve earlier. You can now improve learning outcomes, health outcomes, nutritional standards at a much more rapid pace because of the emergence of artificial intelligence. Today, vast amount of data is backed by huge amount of very sophisticated software, and huge computing power, which was not available earlier, enables you to do artificial intelligence at a scale and size which was unparalleled. And therefore, we are very fortunate to be living in an era which will see the rise of productivity which the world has never seen before. And therefore, to my mind, this is a great opportunity for India. And this is an opportunity to technologically pole vault. So what has India done to move from fragile 5 to top 4? First, that you want to be in the global spot, you want to be a leader. As the Prime Minister said, you have to constantly reform. You have to constantly reform, like we did with the GST, the goods and services tax across the country. No other country has that, but we have one tax across the economy and we constantly refine it, like we've done recently. We brought in the insolvency bankruptcy code because India had socialism which prohibited entry, and you could not exit capitalism without exit. But what India has done with insolvency and bankruptcy code is to bring a lot of financial discipline. And since you're all here in this part of Noida, you could see a number of uncompleted buildings because of real estate, where we've brought in the Real Estate Regulation Act, which has brought discipline. But the corporate tax rate was lowered 2 years back to bring it on par with the world's best regime. And we focused on ease of doing business in a very big way. So structural reforms. But the most important thing for India has been that it digitized its economy, and 1.5 billion people in India have a digital identity. It enabled young startups to do fast payments. Between 2015 and 2017, we opened 550 million bank accounts. Every second bank account was opened in India. We then seeded it with Aadhaar and mobile number. And then it enabled all these young startups to do fast payments. India is the only country where PhonePe competes with Google Pay and Paytm competes with Amazon Pay. We built an alternative model of open source, open API, globally interoperable model. It's very different from the Western part of the world, where all of you, when you get into Meta or you get onto Google or you get onto Amazon, your data is owned by them. Your data is owned by them, and that data is then analyzed by them. They build new products and sell it back to you at high prices. So your data is owned by them, but in India, the digital empowerment protection architecture ensures that your data is owned by you. The model cannot memorize your data. And that is why during India's G20, it was accepted that this is the model for the rest of the world and the global south should emulate what India has done. So, ladies and gentlemen, India built up an alternative model where we built the digital public interest layer, but we allowed private sector to innovate and compete. And therefore, we did fast payments, and today we do 50% of the fast payments in the world. China is next with 20%. But then we had a number of young startups, Mobikwik, Pine Lab, etc., who started looking at the history of fast payments and provided credit. And then you had another set of startups, Zerodha, Grow Up Stock, who took stock market to tier 2, tier 3 cities and rural areas. And then you had another set of startups like GoDigit and Echo, who took insurance to tier 3 and rural areas. So India does identity, credit, fast payment, stock market, credit, all within 30 seconds to 1 minute on the back of mobile. No other country does this. No other country does this, and that is why India leapfrogged, and during COVID period, we did 2.2 billion COVID vaccination without any paperwork. My daughter, who was living in San Francisco, was only doing paperwork. I haven't used my credit card for over 4 years now. I've never been to an ATM machine. The only time I used it when I went to visit her to hire a Uber vehicle. So in many of these areas, India has really pole vaulted digitally. And as the Bank of International Settlements said, India achieved in 7 years what it would have taken India 50 years to achieve. 7 years what it would have taken India 50 years to achieve. And we started, the cost of acquisition of a customer had fallen from what the World Bank says from $30 to 15 cents. From $30 to 15 cents, the cost of acquisition of a customer had fallen, and India became a more productive country in many, many ways. The third thing that has happened in India is that we built up huge infrastructure in the last decade. We've built up over 40 million houses, which is more than the population of Australia. We should try and understand and comprehend this. We do not understand this, we've actually built a complete Australia within India. We've provided toilets to over 130 million citizens of India, which is more than the population of Germany. And we've provided piped water connection to 253 million Indians, which is more than the population of Brazil. But more important, we provided 120 million women of India cooking gas connection, LPG. They used to spoil their life by burning on firewood. So we've transformed the lives of women in rural India by giving LPG connection. And therefore, what you see is the size and scale of India, of what India has done in infrastructure. We've built over 88,000 kilometers of roads, and we've moved our capex spend from less than 1% to close to 4% of our GDP. So infrastructure story is the third one, and I would say the fourth one is really that India has done it in a sustainable manner. So India has gone green. We built up 256 gigawatt of renewable energy at very low price points. Our aim is to become a champion of green hydrogen. Today we import 180 billion worth of fossil fuel. Our aim is that by the time we become 100, we should be the biggest exporter of green hydrogen at $1 per kilogram and export it to the rest of the world in its liquid form, ammonia. And therefore, the ambition of India is that it should grow and develop in a sustainable manner, because 50% of India is still to be built. 50% of India is still to be built. Arnab Goswami will be creating many more studios like this across India in the days to come. Because if 500 million Indians have to move to urban areas, means India will be creating 2 Americas, India will be creating 1 Chicago every 5 years. That's the way the people will move. But we have to do it in a manner that we do it sustainably, with cycling, walking, with public transportation, with better quality of air, and improve the livelihood of citizens in India. So ladies and gentlemen, our ability to do it in a sustainable manner is also dependent on our population, because when Bill Gates says that when you move from fossil fuel to clean energy, you pay 35% extra. But India has demonstrated that using its size and scale, when we bought 500 million LED bulbs, we were able to bring down the price of LED bulb to 15% of their original price. When we did the first tender for electric buses, 7,000 buses, we brought it on par with fossil fuel buses. The next tender of 10,000 buses will bring it 15% lower than fossil fuel buses. And the Prime Minister's vision is that the third tender should be 30,000 buses and the fourth tender for 100,000 buses. So when you do 100,000 buses, you'll make India the center for global manufacturing for electric vehicles. So we are really pushing for Make in India and cutting-edge technology. We are pushing it in a sustainable manner. And the fifth is that we are pushing for cutting-edge technology through the artificial intelligence mission, because data exists in India. Today, what is happening is that Indian data is being used by ChatGPT, by Gemini, and they are taking your data free of cost. They are developing products and they'll sell it, the same data to you at very high prices tomorrow. They will sell you the end product at high prices. Never allow that. Build your own product. And therefore the government has pushed for India to build its own sovereign models, sovereign large language models. If you don't build it, you will lose your history, your civilization. That will be new colonization in a stealth form. And therefore, when we talk about globalization, you must understand that you can't afford to lose your history, your culture, your civilization. You have to use your data to build your large language models, and that is why India government has supported 10 young startups. We are providing computing power at almost 40% the price to our researchers and startups. We have opened up government data bank through AI Kosh to them. And our objective is that once these large language models are built, you build applications on top of them, and you Indians then use their data on these large language models. We've also launched the AI quantum computing mission. We've launched the semiconductor mission, by which, because tomorrow's world will be fought by chips, all studios, all electric vehicles, all drones, all planes, all wars will be fought on chips. And therefore the country for the first time has pushed for the manufacturing of 10 large companies to do chip manufacturing in India. India was a center for design manufacturing, but now we'll be doing large-scale chip manufacturing in India. So ladies and gentlemen, using technology to leapfrog will be very, very critical in the days to come. And how we pole vault using technology across quantum, across AI, across green hydrogen, all this will be critical for India. But as I said, we are confronted by challenges in the breakdown of supply chains and the breakdown of political stability. Those are international challenges. We also have domestic challenges. We've largely grown on the back of services. We need to give a major push to manufacturing, because that will create jobs. We need to urbanize in a very sustainable manner. We need to ensure that the eastern part of India, which is the most populous part of India, grows rapidly. We also need to ensure that we transform the physical quality of life index and the human development index. Ladies and gentlemen, therefore, for all this, to my mind, Aatmanirbharta is critical. And Aatmanirbharta is not about protectionism. It's about becoming the most competitive nation in the world, using the size and scale of your population to become the most competitive nation in the world. All these countries, you look at the history of the United States in the 19th century, you look at the history of Japan, you look at the history of China, all these countries actually practiced hardcore protectionism when they were growing and expanding. They talk about free trade now, but they were all protectionists when they were growing and expanding. Today, In today's world, when they've grown and become highly developed, they're talking about free world. But they were all protectionists. Even today, it's impossible for India to export to China. We are a major importer of goods from China, but it's impossible to export. All non-tariff barriers. You try putting up an industry in Japan, it's impossible. You look at America, what it is doing with tariffs on India. All these countries are following all hypocrisy and double standards across the world. All hypocrites, they're all basically, we have to be nationalist. We have to pursue growth with one single-minded vision, one single-minded clarity with one single-minded goal, and that is making India a $30+ trillion economy. And this requires us, to my mind, have the clarity that this is going to be India's decade, but this is also going to be India's century. And if this is going to be India's century, and I'm a great optimist that this is going to be India's century because of young demographics. 90% of the people sitting in this room are young. India is the only country where the average age of population is 29, even when we become 100, the average age will be 35. United States is aging, Europe is aging, China is aging, Japan is aged, but India will still be young, and rarely has a country not created wealth when it is young. Secondly, ladies and gentlemen, there's no country in the world which is making 30 kilometers of roads and 12 kilometers of railway line every day when it is growing. There's no country in the world which is making 9 metros every day, and there's no country in the world which has expanded its solar energy 31x in the last 7 years, and there's no country in the world which does 50% of the fast payments by mobile. So ladies and gentlemen, my belief is that this is going to be India's decade and India's century, but we have to be very clear that we have to use our size and scale and our young population to drive India's growth and become a leader. And that will require Aatmanirbharta in a very big way. And Aatmanirbharta, to my mind, is not about protectionism. It's about making India the most competitive economy. This will require us to break down rules, regulation, procedures, the socialist mindset, which we've built over the years. We'll have to allow free enterprise to grow. We'll have to have a clear vision that India will have to grow on the back of free enterprise, with government acting as a facilitator and catalyst, and we'll have to become a leading exporter, because without exports, India will not be able to grow. And we'll have to ensure that India's physical quality of life index improves across the world. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, this is a rare moment in history. Rarely does a country get a moment when you have political stability over a long period of time. Rarely does a country get a moment when it has young population. Rarely does a country get a government which is very in favor of breaking rules and regulation. Rarely does a country get a moment when the country wants reforms to grow and progress. All these factors are combining. All these factors are converging, they are integrating together for making India Atmanirbhar, but more than that, they are pushing India towards a Viksit Bharat of 2047. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
MDH की देगी मीरज,
देगी मिर्च का तड़का, अंग अंग फड़का।
MDH की देगी मीरज।
In the global employability rankings by Times Higher Education UK, only the following 6 institutions from India are ranked amongst the top 230 in the world for having the most employable graduates: IIT Delhi, IISc Bangalore, IIT Bombay, IIM Ahmedabad, IIT Kharagpur, and Amity University.
Pure Shahi Paneer Masala. Delicious, healthy, every day.